What's up, dogs? It's Nyctopluvo, and welcome back to the Nyctopluvo podcast. This is a special edition of the podcast, and it's our recent games pickups episode with Drew, which was on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen that, you should probably see that first before you proceed to watch this podcast.
It's
but
kind
anyway,
of the teaser for this podcast.
Yeah, but anyway, so a lot of people were like, "Oh, Michael, your recent games pickups are too long," and I was like, "You're right."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the idea was that we'd try to make the episodes more short, brief, blunt, to the point. Like, hey, this is what I fucking got. This is what this game's about, and not expand upon more well-known games. But anyway, so if you're listening to this on SoundCloud and you don't even know who I am, well, you should probably get familiar. Go over, watch that recent games pickups, come back over here, and we'll have a great time. Yeah. And if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, I'm going to make it a special edition because me and Drew recorded, gameplay for every game here, and we got 15 to 20 minutes of most of these games.
Yep.
And obviously we're not going to put all that gameplay into the 5 seconds we talk about most games. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if most people, when they watch a podcast, they just put it on the background. But if you're staring at the screen for some reason,
whatever reason,
there will be some pretty gameplay for you to look at.
Yeah.
Some beautiful looking gameplay. If you look at the screen right now, there's a water dumple getting killed in Pikmin 2. Isn't it great?
Oh,
he just got fucked up.
Oh, damn. I like the way you threw the Pikmin at him.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, well, I think it'd probably be a good start for both. You guys are probably going to hear a lot of, background noises of us shuffling through our games because we got them just, here for reference. But I thought it'd be a good idea if we start with talking about Mario Tennis Aces because, we both got that game. You got it day one. I got it.
I pre-ordered. I didn't. Yeah, I pre-ordered it.
I got it not even a week later. I got it
a few days later.
Because I had to wait for payday before I could go out and buy it. But I had a lot of fun with it.
3 words for me are good but flawed.
Good but what?
Good but flawed.
Flawed? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by flawed?
The ranked mode is kind of a mess, and I feel like it didn't ship with enough single-player content. But I think the gameplay is very good fun. I think it's very enjoyable, and I don't really have any major complaints about it, other than some balancing issues, which we really shouldn't expect Nintendo or Camelot especially to be super great about balancing their games. Camelot does not have a lot of experience in making a balanced online environment, so...
I had a lot of fun playing it. I will say, I feel like, there definitely probably wasn't as much content. And I was a little bit upset with, the tournament, the offline tournament cups, because it was kind of weak compared to other games.
Oh, it was very weak, yeah. It was super easy, too.
But to be fair, though, we got the whole story mode, which was, super fun. I will say there was some annoying parts, like the parts where it's hit the ball back and forth 500 times.
Volley,
it's I'd rather not. And then there was a couple ones where it's alright, you're up against, fucking Shane Chomp or something. You got to make sure he doesn't hit any of these balls, but if he hits 3 of them, you're done. And you had to do that too many times, and it's oh, this is just stupid. I didn't 100% beat the game because of small stupid shit like that, but I beat the more important parts of the story, because those were kind of side challenges.
Yeah. You could get upgrades and stuff from them. See, on the flip side, I did 100% the game. I did it in one night. It only took me a couple of hours. I had really hoped to see the story mode in addition to the content that we expected from Power Tennis on the GameCube. I definitely don't think they should have gotten rid of all of the special cups or just all the cups, the difficult cups. The difficulty wasn't there in the PvE, I felt.
Yeah, because, like, there was the Flower Cup, which is always, like, super... well, the Mushroom Cup, then the Flower Cup. Both those cups are always really easy. Star Cups where it begins to get a little bit more difficult, but it's not difficult yet.
But then after that, you have, like, 6 more cups in the GameCube version, I think, right?
Yeah, like, there's the gimmick ones, there's the Fire and Thunder, and, like, those, I would say those ones aren't particularly difficult. It's just, you know, you play on the gimmick courts. And then there's, like, the Universe Cup, the Rainbow Cup. I said those backwards. Universe is, like, the hardest. Then there's, the Rainbow's probably the easiest of the harder ones. Then there's one in between them. Maybe like the Galaxy Cup, I don't know, but like the Universe Cup was like the pinnacle of like how difficult the GameCube version got, and basically Aces didn't even get anywhere near there.
The things that really keep me playing in those games are unlockables too, like games that are very, very much focused on gameplay over presentation, that kind of stuff. Gameplay over presentation, over story, over all that. If gameplay's the forefront, I expect there to be a lot of unlockables. Like, you know, Tekken, you have the costume pieces, same with Soul Calibur. Or like Smash Bros, you unlock all the characters and stuff. And there's not really any unlockables in Aces.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when, like, I got the game, because I thought, like, a couple characters would be unlockable, like, you know, like Chain Chomp and, like, that one little Spike baby boy. I don't know, maybe a handful of other. I thought Rosalina might have been unlockable too.
Nope, you get the full roster right when you start, and the only real unlockables, because there are the unlockables for doing the monthly tournaments for the first 3 months after launch.
I'm looking forward to the blooper one, because he looks like he's going to be fun to play.
Yeah, so if you do the tournaments, the online tournaments, which is like the ranked mode, if you do them, which they only have the first 3 months, which is also kind of weird, because, you know, the other games that Nintendo's been doing have been getting support for, like, a full year or at least 6 months, and this one only gets 3 months. As far as we know, there might be more in the future, but I kind of doubt it, because there's
I mean, it'd be a pretty baller if they released some more, like, tournament cups.
Oh, yeah, I'd be really into it, but I don't really see it going that direction. But yeah, so if you compete in the 3 monthly tournaments after launch, you unlock characters, but you unlock those characters anyway if you just wait. If the tournament finishes, you automatically unlock the character at the end of the tournament. So you don't really need to do anything there, and you just get them. They're just kind of like timed unlocks. And then the other unlockables are like the rackets and the leveling, but that's all self-contained in the single player. You don't really need... After you finish the single player, there's no unlockables, so you don't need to... Like, you could get to max level, you could unlock all the rackets, but you don't have any...
Yeah, you don't need to unlock them at all. Actually, I did the first boss battle backwards, because, like, the idea is that you do, like, the side stuff to get, like, the new racket for that area, and then you do the boss. The first boss battle, I beat it, and then I did the extra stuff, and then it's like, oh, hey, here's an extra racket that would help you against this boss battle. But, you know, the first boss is, like, P. Piranha. It wasn't particularly difficult at all. Like, I don't think I had to... I don't think there was, like, multiple attempts. I think maybe I had to, like, redo it once because I didn't fully understand what was going on. But, you know, it was real simple. Let me ask you something. Did you hate the boat gimmick level as much as I did?
I think it's, yeah, kinda. I don't hate it. I like the idea of it. I just don't like playing on it.
I just hate it because, like, if I feel like it's, like, BS, especially since, like, when you play it in the story mode, one of the guys you go up against is the blooper, and he's a tricky character.
So like, he can get around it, but Mario can't.
Yeah, no, like, he does these shots where sometimes it looks like it's going to go around it, then it bounces. So basically the gimmick in this level, for those of you who don't know, is you're on a ship, and then in the middle there's, like, the mast. Yeah, like, where there's the flags hanging from, and if you hit that, like, you know, it's a solid object, it's gonna bounce off. And, like, since the Blooper's like a tricky character. Like he does like these weird curveballs and stuff, and like if like he like does these weird shots and like he can easily hit around it, but then sometimes he will hit it so it throws you off really hard, and then like other times if you hit it, like it fucks you up really bad because like you might hit it and then it immediately goes into the out area and he knows not to go after it because he's like an AI.
Computer, yeah.
So it's just like super obnoxious, and I that was like the one like match against like a AI that like I hated the most because it was so stupid.
That did just remind me though, like another complaint I had, my biggest complaint with the game actually, is that you can't select your stage. When you play co-op, or not co-op, but like when you play together, single player, or single console play, split screen, there's no way to select your stage. You can select a stage pool where you can choose what stages can appear, but bottom line is once you get into game, the stage that you're actually going to be on is randomized from a pool. And I think it's really weird that you don't have that option, and you don't have like the options to customize. You have very little customizable options, which is directly taken away from the previous games. Like, we don't have the option to change our stage, and a couple other things like round limits, time limits, that kind of stuff we don't have access to. And I think it's really weird that we don't, and that's something I would actually expect from an update.
Alright. I think we covered enough of that. I think probably the next game to move on to is probably Resident Evil's.
Yeah, it's
or
another
Resident Evil remake specifically. But if you wanna talk the rear off about the other ones you got, I forget which ones you got. You got Revelations 1 and 2.
Yep.
And then Code Veronica X.
Yep. And Darkside Chronicles. I have quick stuff to say about them. Darkside Chronicles was fun. It's the sequel to Umbrella Chronicles, which was the light gun shooter on the Wii. It is also a light gun shooter on the Wii. While Umbrella Chronicles was very arcadey, and it felt like it could be played in arcade, it was very good. I very much enjoyed Umbrella Chronicles. Darkside Chronicles went for a more cinematic approach, which I guess is kind of telling of the games it covered. Kind of. I take that back. But, so Umbrella Chronicles covered the stories of Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 0. And then Umbrella Chronicles covers Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica. But yeah, the gameplay, I played it with Demi all the way through, and neither of us enjoyed it quite as much as we liked Umbrella Chronicles. It was slower paced. There's a lot of camera shake, which is really annoying in light gun shooters, but what are you going to do? But at the end of the day, I thought it was a very good game. It definitely looked a lot better than Umbrella Chronicles. That's about all I have to say about that one. Like, it's fun. It tells the stories of those games, and it has some original content, too, in terms of story. And both Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles are canon within the Resident Evil universe, if that matters at all to you. And then Code Veronica is another one I got, which Code Veronica is a fun one, just story-wise, because Code Veronica was originally a Dreamcast game. I got Code Veronica X, which is the release for the PlayStation 2. Code Veronica is interesting because Capcom wanted to make Resident Evil 3, and this was right after the Dreamcast had come out, and they wanted to make Resident Evil 3 on the most up-to-date hardware. But at the time, they were stuck in a licensing deal with Sony, where they had to release 3 main series numbered entries of the Resident Evil franchise on a Sony platform. So what they did was they were developing a sister game to Resident Evil 2, which is Resident Evil Nemesis. It was just called Resident Evil Nemesis. And Nemesis takes place at the same time as 2, like I think a day before. And you go to a lot of the same areas, but it tells a different story. And that was supposed to release as just a side game. Still canon, but not like a full numbered entry. And then they were developing Code Veronica for the Dreamcast, and that was going to be Resident Evil 3. but Sony was very unhappy about that because they kind of just broke their contract, and they came back, kind of yelled at Capcom about it. So all that Capcom did was, I think they added some content to Nemesis, and then they slapped 3 on it. So they literally just changed the name from Resident Evil Nemesis to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and that appeased Sony. And then Code Veronica is kind of the true Resident Evil 3, but it's technically a side game now.
And then there's a remake, which we started playing, like, you know, together. You got a copy and I got a copy, so we busted out, like, both our GameCubes, 2 TVs, and we're playing side by side. And I want to say that, in, like, the first podcast we did, we talked a little bit about how, like, Resident Evil compares to, like, Silent Hill, and I only played, like, the first Silent Hill and Resident Evil 4, and I said that part of the reasons I liked Silent Hill over it was, you know, the atmosphere, and I realized there's, like, a little bit more to that I liked playing, like, that I realized through Resident Evil Remake, which was, I really like, because, like, Resident Evil 1 and Silent Hill are better game comparisons, because, so, like, what's the right way to describe it? Like, they're more kind of, like, puzzly, like, you're, like, walking around, and then it's, like, you can go in certain rooms, but you need certain items to do certain things, and it was very much like that in Silent Hill, and, like, not in Resident Evil 4, because Resident Evil 4 is more actiony,
it's an action game,
but, like, Resident Evil 1 is more like that, so when we were playing, I found myself enjoying that more. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's slower paced and everything, and, you know, you're not killing as many things, you know, frequently, but I just feel like overall it's a better game experience, because you're just going around, you're finding items, and you're like, oh, I got this item, maybe this item could do that, and then, you know, you go back over
puzzle solving, key items and all that. I always describe Resident Evil, at least classic Resident Evil, so like 1 through 3 and then Code Veronica, I describe them as action point-and-click games, because that's what they feel like. They're very much like you go, you pick up items, you use them in different puzzle situations, but along the way there are zombies that you run into. And there's, like, the whole survival aspect. So I guess there's survival point-and-click adventures, which I really enjoy. I think it's a really neat concept.
Yeah, and I realize more and more that, like, I do like the classic Resident Evil, like, you know, Silent Hill, like, 1. I'm not sure how the other ones are, just, you know, the fixed camera angles. Because, I mean, like, it's a little bit annoying when you first start playing, but then as you get used to it, it's fine.
It's super quick.
But, like, I feel like it makes a better horror experience only being able to look through, like, a certain perspective, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
You got anything else more to say about Resident Evil?
Just that I also picked up Revelations and Revelations 2. I got the Switch ports. My big reason for buying that is because Revelations 2 has a really cool co-op mode. It has asymmetrical co-op, where one person plays as a support character and one person plays as the main character. So it's not like Resident Evil 5, where you're kind of picking and choosing what weapons you get to keep and you have to give the rest to the other person. It's like the support character plays a very unique and specific role, and they're usually just controlled by the AI, but we got the option to have someone else control them, and it's really neat, like, because there's 2 campaigns kind of in Resident Evil 2 or Revelations 2, and there's Barry's and Claire's, and Claire has a girl follow her around. Her name is Moira, and Moira carries the flashlight and uses a crowbar and does puzzles for Moira, and so the second player just has a flashlight and a crowbar, so Claire protects her while Moira does different stuff, and it makes for a unique multiplayer experience. And then Barry's protecting a little girl, and she has, like, psychic powers and stuff, so it's really neat and unique, and having it on the Switch, it's portable, and it's really convenient to play multiplayer, as the only other way I owned it was on PC.
So, I'm sure you saw I picked this game up, because we mentioned that we had a story about this game
Yes.
in the recent games pickups video, and this is Blood Rain, which Drew picked up, and we described it as like a B-movie video game,
which is perfect way to describe it.
It was really funny. Like, do you want to tell what the one thing that happened? Like, so basically, we were like recording and Drew was playing, and he was like half paying attention up until a certain event.
So like it drops you right in the center of kind of the first level. There's a lot of talking, a lot of exposition. They really talk your ear off right at the beginning. And then you just kind of get dropped right in the middle of the level, and I ran out into the water because in Blood Rain you play as a witch, and I believe just witches can't touch water.
Yeah, and I remember you were running in water. I was like, Drew, what are you doing?
And I was dying.
Stop,
I was like,
get out of the water. You're like, your health bar is draining.
I was like killing myself on purpose just as a joke. But then I started backing up, and there were like electrical wires running into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up on top of an electrical wire, and I kind of just ran on it for like
a mile.
Yeah, for like a mile. It was really interesting.
It was funny because like Drew was half paying attention, like kind of like playing one-handed. Then he got on the telephone wire, and like then at that point he like was fully paying attention. And he's just going, "Oh, I'm fucking amazing! I'm fucking amazing! Look at me! Oh,
yeah, it was a good time."
And then when you actually started fighting things, do you remember like the hardcore lock-on, like aim assist?
Yeah. And then, like, I remember she was aiming at two different characters at a time. That was one of... We talked about in the recent games pickups. It has, like, some really interesting mechanics that got a lot of attention and some that didn't. And one of them was that in this game, you have a lot of guns. Many, many guns. And you can choose any two guns to dual wield together. So, like, you can have a shotgun in one hand and a pistol in the other, or you can have two pistols or two SMGs. And that's really neat, especially for the time, because it was an earlier PS2 game, and that wasn't super crazy common. And it had lock-on. The cool thing, again, is that this is something that was in Code Veronica as well, where if you're dual-wielding weapons and you automatically lock on to a character, you can lock on to two different targets at a time, and like your left hand will shoot one enemy and your right hand will shoot another enemy, and it's just kind of neat.
And it was really funny to look at because there was characters that weren't on our screen, and she's aiming at two different like zombies that like aren't on screen, and then like he moved around a little bit and she changed aims.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you went to go beat up the person that was on your side?
Yeah, and she kicked my ass.
Yeah, no, she like I forgot if you actually no you died, I think.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and she was throwing kicks and shit if I remember, and she was going like ham on you.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore.
It was really funny to watch. So I wanna talk a little bit about Rayman Rush here.
Yeah.
So this is the one that I mentioned that was it's a Rayman platform racer.
Yes.
And this is actually my introduction to Rayman because my little brother bought this on the PS1. This is like the first Rayman game we had, and basically, you know, it's just like a 1v1 race, like in a. I wouldn't say fully 3D, but it's kind of like a 3D platform levels.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's lap-based, and you just run around. And surprisingly, it's actually, like, really fun. We played a little bit of it, like, the other day, like, me, Drew, and Demi, and we were taking turns, like, doing races. And, like, you know, it's the nice thing about it is, like, it seems like there's the person that's in second place is never too far behind.
No. Yeah.
So it's... I wouldn't... I don't know if balance is the right word, but...
There's a lot of catch-up mechanisms that they have in place for the second player. And then it feels like they might get a speed boost, too. Because I felt like whenever I was in second, I was always right on someone's tail. Even if I was messing up a ton, I always felt right on someone's tail.
Yeah, and you mentioned at one point that, like, being in second is probably, like, the best place to be a majority of the time.
Like Mario Kart.
Because, like... Basically, like, you can, like, throw kind of, like, these, I wouldn't say, it's kind of like a gun, like, you, like, throw, like, little, like, blue fireballs, and they stun. I don't think majority of the time they don't stun your enemy, but if you let it charge up, you can freeze them and pass them up.
It's something buried in the lore of Rayman 2.
What makes you say that?
Just because I know it was what you could throw those things in Rayman 2. And then that game's just kind of like the follow-up after Rayman 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fun. I think, did you want to talk, any capacity about Rayman Legends?
Just that it's, you know,
Since, we're on the topic of Rayman.
Yeah, I mean, rundown of Rayman Legends, I'm sure most of you have heard about it. It's a very fast-paced platformer, almost rhythmic in a sense, and there are some levels that are specifically rhythmic.
They're the best levels in the game, I would say.
But I have what I just picked up here. I had Rayman Legends on the PlayStation 3, and my PlayStation 3 stopped reading discs. So to fill the gap there, I bought Rayman Legends Definitive Edition on the Switch, which is, Switch is my preferred platform for pretty much anything right now. But the Definitive Edition changed some of the stuff, and I don't know exactly all the changes made to the Definitive Edition, but I do know that they overhauled Kung Foot, which is one of the side game modes that they had, which is like a competitive soccer game. And they changed some stuff around in that and made it more substantial, I believe. But Rayman Legends is a very fast-paced platformer. A lot of people compare it to the Donkey Kong series, Donkey Kong Country series. I definitely see the comparison. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Everyone loves it.
So in my hand here I got Worm Space Oddity. I was thinking about it the other day, and as far as like physical releases for the Worms game, I stumble on my words there. I think I have like almost all the physical releases of Worms games. There's like a lot of Worms games. Not all of them are released on physical media. Some of them are just, like computer-based games. But anyway, so Worms Space Oddity is a Wii game. A lot of motion controls in it. There's different weapons than there are in like most normal Worms games. Like there's like laser guns and like space grenades and stuff. And I just thought it was an interesting experience playing this one, because like, as I said in the recent games pickup, there's a lot of motion. Like you have to like lift your controller up to like charge how powerful your shot is, and then like you gotta throw and release like the B button, I think it was. And it's a different experience. I think there's a couple mini games in this as well that I didn't get super into. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bad game. It's definitely like a different Worms experience than the norm.
Right.
And the funny thing about this is that I remember you pointed out when we were like walking through the Wii section, and you're like, "Oh, do you have a Space Oddity?" And I was like, "No," but I was kind of looking for it, because like I've known of this game for a while, but I haven't really ever seen it anywhere. I see you dropped Mario Strikers there.
Yeah, I was just gonna put it on the done pile because I didn't really have much to say about it. Now that it's on the table, though, I suppose
you're obligated.
Yeah, Mario Strikers is. Do you remember what company it is? I don't want to bend over and pick up the. I guess I can. So Mario Strikers, it's the soccer adaptation of the Mario Sports series. I don't know if it's really appropriate to call it the Mario Sports series, because that would involve like Sluggers and Strikers, where Sluggers is a Konami game. Konami made Sluggers.
Mario Sluggers? Konami, the same people that made Metal Gear and Silent Hill, and Other.
Yes.
Other the game, that was my favorite.
I love it. Other
on the PS1.
Yeah. So Camelot did golf and tennis. Konami did Sluggers, which is baseball. And then this one is by a company that no one knows, Next Level Games. So people know about Next Level a little bit. But, yeah, it's different development, which means it has a lot of different design principles. This is less simulatory than, I would say, the tennis and golf games are. Because the tennis and golf games do have a simulator vibe to them to some extent. More so than this, for sure. But less so than Sluggers. But it's pretty arcadey, and it's like you control an entire team. And it does have a decent skill ceiling, to be completely honest. I don't know how balanced it necessarily is, but it's a lot of fun. Without going into too much detail, there's some systems that are unique, and you charge up the ball, and the more charged up the ball is, the harder you can hit it into the goal. And you can like charge up the ball through various ways, and you can use items like Mario Kart, and it's a lot of fun. We play it every so often, and never.
I'm not super good at it, but I still do enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Because usually when we play it, I'm getting my ass kicked real hard. But it is a fun experience. So, I was thinking, I could probably talk about this one game I've been looking for a while, and then we'll transition to that game that you've been looking for a little while.
Yeah.
So basically, I don't know if I mentioned it in the recent games pickup, but I've been looking for Outrun 2 for quite a while.
Yes.
And, couldn't find it. Like, it was like the one Xbox game. Like, I'd go over and scan the Xbox games, see if I could find it. But basically, so it's a racing, like an arcade racing game, and like the thing that makes it different and interesting is like the heart attack mode, where you have like a girl in the shotgun seat and you have to like do things to impress her, you know, pass up cars, drift, and then like later on it gets harder, and it's like, all right, here's like a red area, like a highlighted area of the road, and you have to drive on that side, and then it like cuts around corners, so you have to drift and stay in it. And it gets harder, and you know, then there's like standard racing mode, and I will say the standard racing mode is actually really hard. I think the game is named very appropriately, because you get outran like immediately. Like, every time I tried playing the racing mode, I would always be in 8th place, and the guy in 7th place would be miles ahead of me, and everybody else would be all packed up like miles ahead.
Yeah.
And like the way the both heart attack and the racing mode work the same, where like you have to like hit these checkpoints. Like, it's like kind of like
arcade racer.
Yeah, it's like a point to point. So like there's these timers, and if you don't hit a checkpoint in a certain amount of time and your timer runs out, then you're like disqualified from the race. And yeah, like sometimes you'll just like get disqualified from a race, you know, and while you're trying to struggle to even get like anywhere that's not in 8th place. And the cool thing too about heart attack mode is like it's set up to where it's like kind of like a free roam of like a city, and at certain points you'll get the option to go left or right, and it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you know, like ABC through Z. So basically the first time you get an option to go left or right, you go like left for B, you know, right for C, and then, you know, basically like the lower alphabet letters are like easier, so if you stay left the whole time, it'll be easier, but if you want to like up the difficulty, you can go right.
Alright. That's okay. So you kind of adjust based on how you're feeling. That's neat.
Yeah, like there's like an end eventually, you know, you get to like the top.
Right, yeah.
And I've tried to like stay left, but even with that, it still
gets more hard and hard, yeah.
Yeah, and I get beat up. So you wanna tell us a little bit about
So the game Michael's referring to and gesturing at, for those wondering, is Streets of Rage 2. I do not have the first Streets of Rage, but 2 is the one that everyone loves, and I see why. It's very, very good. We played it a while, and then Michael game overed, and I just kept playing it for a while. Michael played as, do you remember, was his name Spin?
I don't know, he's a skateboard kid, and I had a lot of fun playing as him. And I didn't realize there was, at first I didn't realize, but then eventually I kind of did it a little bit on purpose, where there's like friendly fire. And there's this move where he kind of just like spins around on the ground.
He break dances.
Yeah, with like his skateboard. And I remember like unintentionally a lot when we were playing. Like, I would be doing that and, like, trying to, like, kill enemies around, but then an enemy would throw you near me and I'd smack you around a little bit.
Bounced around. But yeah, I mean, Streets of Rage, possibly best thing to say about it is its soundtrack. It's ridiculously good, especially for the time. Gameplay is very fun. It's very arcade beat 'em up style. Final Fight, a little different than Final Fight, but relatively similar. Yeah, Sega exclusive. It's a Sega first party game, so won't be seeing that on Nintendo. This is on the Genesis. It's worth mentioning. Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at it right now, and I'm wondering, because you just bought this game, so I haven't heard you say much about it. It's WarioWare Gold.
Yes.
So you want to tell me a little bit about what's happening in that game, what's new, what's unique?
Yeah, so
I do know that Nintendo Minute finally made Nintendo Minute a minute,
Actually a minute.
talking about WarioWare Gold. Which, if you don't know, Nintendo Minute is never a minute, in case you didn't know.
So Nintendo's kind of been there's kind of the Nintendo limbo right now on 3DS, where their 3DS games don't get. It's not that they don't get a lot of love; they just don't get a lot of I don't know, development. Maybe they've been very much in a mood of if it's not broken, don't fix it with 3DS titles recently, and they haven't really had any major 3DS titles since like the Pokemon games. This is WarioWare Gold. It's the newest one, and it very much is WarioWare. It's kind of, they released Mario Party the Top 100.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the equivalent for that with WarioWare. It's WarioWare, and then it has 300 micro games, most of which are from the previous games.
So I assume most of them you played before.
Yes.
Are there very many from WarioWare Inc.?
Yes, most of them are from Inc. There are not a lot from I don't think there are any that were original to Smooth Moves, just because that's really hard to replicate.
I can make a side note, real quick here. The thing I like a lot about the WarioWare games, like even Inc. Like Inc. is our favorite, and like I would say both of us. Usually I play it with you and Demi, so like you're usually there most of the time I play it, but I still play that game, and micro games will come up that I've never seen before. Like there's so many different like little micro games that like you play it like. You like sink so many hours in it, and you're still seeing new micro games, which is super awesome.
And this new one, it's a 3DS game. This new one has the most micro games of any WarioWare that they've made yet. It's 300 in this one, over 300, or it might be exactly 300.
I probably won't have gameplay for this, so if you're watching on YouTube, this is probably ink I'm putting in the background.
But yeah, WarioWare Gold, from what I've gathered so far in my brief time, I've only spent about 2 hours with it. It's interesting, actually. The most interesting thing about it is it's completely voice acted, which sounds weird, and it's because it is. It's very strange.
They got Orbulon in there with a voice.
He's the last person you encounter, so I haven't gotten there yet. But it's separated into play styles. So this one features multiple play styles. Unlike WarioWare Touched, which is just the touch mini games for the DS, WarioWare Inc. is just the MASH video game, or the MASH micro games, where you use like the D-pad and the A button. And then there's the Twist ones, which I think was a Game Boy. WarioWare had Twist functionality. And there's Blow ones, which I think might be new. I haven't gotten to those yet.
I feel like there was Blow ones maybe in game in Wario. On the Wii U?
Oh, there might have been.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Nothing's coming to mind. But yeah. I think there might have been like one or two. More like one.
So, this one has all the different play styles. And they're just kind of... It's basically just a compilation of all the WarioWare minigame or micro games. And it's good. It's WarioWare. It plays like WarioWare, and I much enjoy WarioWare.
I'd love to have that game, but I need to... You said I don't need the joystick. Like, my joystick's real fucked up on my 3DS, and I need to get a new one.
You can play this game completely. I don't think you would miss anything if you didn't have a joystick.
I mean, it might be a little bit weird navigating through the menus. No.
Just use the D-pad or the touchscreen.
Yeah, but, like, my 3DS is fucked up really bad. Like, the last game I tried playing on it was Animal Crossing, and then, you know, when you start Animal Crossing, you walk right out your house, and I couldn't move beyond that point, so I just had to save and quit.
Yeah.
I was looking at something in your stack that when you mentioned Dark Moon in the video, you said you didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
And, I refrained from saying it because I thought I'd save it for the podcast, but, as it compares to, like, the original, I wouldn't say it's as good, but it's still very good.
Right.
It's, like, level-based. You know, I think there's, like, 5 different mansions. But one of my favorite parts is, I think you played a little bit of this as well, is the survival tower mode. And it's, like, these random generated, like, it's, like, there's like 5 floors, and basically you have to clear like every floor of like ghost, and then move on to the next floor, and eventually you get to the roof. And I don't remember if there's a boss battle on the roof or not, or like a mini boss, but basically you're just going around clearing room to room, getting keys, opening up new rooms. And here's the cool part, it's co-op.
Yep.
And I think it's it's like download play, so your friends don't have to have it. And you know, everybody plays as Luigi, so it's a little bit weird.
Different color Luigi.
It's
right?
definitely different colors, but it's really fun to play like Luigi's Mansion. Like, even if you're just like, you know, clearing basic ghosts like across the floor with like other people, and then like, you know, your teammate can get if they like lose all their health, they go down, you have to come over and shine them with your flashlight. And like, you don't have to be in the same area. Like, if me and Drew were playing, I could go onto the right side of like the floor, and Drew could go on the left side, and we could like clear things together.
You can just go you could like move together, and then like your encounters would be easier because then there'd be 2 of you fighting everything. Or you could like go completely separately, and so either way you either make the game easier or you speed up your completion time if you go separate paths, because then you're each exploring and each doing new stuff. So,
yeah, and then the thing I don't like about this Luigi's Mansion is I felt part of what made the first one great is like you had like these you know, kind of like these named ghosts, and they had like certain ways you had to like capture, like, you know, stun them before you could capture them. And you know, there was like a
personality in
like a lot of personality. Like, you'd go into a room, then there'd be this big ghost, and then you'd be like, all right, how do I gotta stun this guy to like, you know, capture him? And they didn't have any of that like in this one. It was like all like the basic ghosts, you know, like the little nobodies. And I mean, like, it was fine, but like it could have been better if they did like the personality ghost. But they did do this thing that was interesting. I forget what it was called. Like, you get the special head you put on your flashlight and do this like
the dark light or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a dark light, and like, so basically like the boos would like possess objects, and they would make them like disappear. So like, for example, maybe there's like a room you see on the map, but you don't see a door for it, and then you use this black flashlight, and it highlights a door, and then like the door appears, and then there's these like little orbs, and you gotta suck them all up, and then the door fully reappears, and you can go through it. And it was super cool. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad game at all. It's still very good, but as it compares to the first one, I wouldn't say. First one definitely trumps it real hard.
They're re-releasing the first one on 3DS, coming soonish.
I think that's weird that they're still supporting the 3DS. Like, I would have rather had like them release GameCube support for the Switch, and then bought like that on my Switch. But I mean, I'll take some mobile Luigi's Mansion, you know, where I can get it.
Right. But yeah, if I'm sure if it's probably like testing the waters too, like if the remake of Luigi's Mansion sells well, they might make a fully featured sequel to Luigi's Mansion, you know, like a proper sequel. Unlike what we got with Dark Moon, where Dark Moon was kind of like, it felt like a side series type deal. Yeah.
So moving on, we got Drew bought Splatterhouse.
Yes.
Which I've always seen this game around. I was never particularly interested in it, but when we were recording gameplay, it looked really fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a simple brawler type deal. Not dissimilar to like Batman, but it's less counter based. And it's just super gory. Super fast.
I don't remember if there was actually a health. I think there was an actual health
there
bar,
was.
but there was like a subtle health
Battle
bar
damage.
to where like if you were like real low on health, your guy would be like ripped apart,
Yeah.
like his bones
Chunks
would be
of flesh
visible.
are missing. Yeah.
And I remember, this is not, like, related to that at all, but, like, at one point in the gameplay when we were playing, and, you know, this isn't really a spoiler, we only really played, like, the first level, but, like, some guy came in the room and, like, ripped off your arm, I think.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
you ripped off...
Something happened, and basically the main character got his arm ripped off. And, it just grew back. It just... Because, it's all about a mask, like a mystical mask that attaches to the guy and gives him his powers, and one of those powers is rapid healing. But, again, the thing I mentioned in the video that's really cool about this, is that on top of this game, they also included the 3 classic, Splatterhouse 1, 2, and 3, so that's really neat. That's one of the things that got me really excited. But also, it's just kind of another really heavily stylized game where
Yeah, and they also had
cool
like
soundtrack, cool gameplay.
They kind of had like similar to like the glory kills in like Doom 2016 kind of thing going on, which was super fun. Like my biggest gripe with it is that like when you did it, like the whole screen went black and it was just you and then whoever you were, you know, doing the kill on, and like it made more of a focus on like, you know, the kill, but it was like it just felt weird, like it kind of broke the flow of gameplay to like do this little scene, but like they were fun to watch.
And to kind of like maybe give you a good example of how comically gory this game is some of the one of the glory kills that I ended up getting a lot was basically there's a humanoid enemy and you kick them down, and then while they're laying down you put your foot on their spine and you grab them by the arms and you pull back and rip both of the guy's arms off. But then after you do that, the guy dies, but you can pick up his arms and use them as melee weapons against the rest of the enemies in the area. So it's stuff like that. It's just really goofy, really over the top, super campy, kinda fits right in with like classic horror. The main character of the original series was not so subtly based off of Jason Voorhees, so it's kind of that's the niche that it's going for, and it does a good job. The originals especially.
So I think I'll move on. We talked about a couple of your games, so I think we should talk about, you know, a few of mine. So I think we should probably move on to Geon Cube, which was the one I talked about that said it was a puzzle game,
right?
But it was more like kind of like a sport, and basically the idea
it's like a PvP type deal.
But basically the idea of this is like there's this grid and you're on one side, some guy you're versing is on the other side, and you're picking up like these little pellets, and when you get enough you go onto his side and you score. But then there's like attacks and stuff and like special power-ups. So basically at any point you can jump up and smack the ground and hit the other cube on the other side, and they lose their pellets and have to like recollect them. And basically you don't really need to do that much unless like they have like all the things they need and they're about to score, so you have to like stop them. But the thing that sucks that we found out is there's a meter, so you can only do one attack in a certain amount of time. So if you do an attack and then miss, then it's like, well, now you can just score and there's nothing you can do about it. And then like there's also like all these power-ups. Like at the beginning you pick a certain like Geon, which the cubes are just called Geons, and you pick certain ones, and like there's like, it's kind of like the pellets are kind of like Pac-Man. Then there's like power pellets, which give you your powers, and so there's a couple different like powers. There's one that's just like a speed boost, you go super fast. There's one that's kind of like a slide, where you just slide across the map. There's one that's like an attack, and basically you do an attack and it does like the spike area effect damage. So basically you can use that one, and if you don't hit the cube directly, as long as they're in your area of impact, they get hit. And then there's the shadow cube, which basically like hides you from your enemies from a certain amount of time. And I think there was a couple other ones, can't really remember them. But the game's really fun. You know, it's real simple. It's PvP based.
Yeah, it's kind of how I would imagine like a weird Pac-Man PvP game would play. You know, like if they had to make a game without ghosts and it was two Pac-Mans duking it out, I think this is kind of how it would play.
And we don't need to talk about this game, but I thought I would. I made the joke in the recent games pickups, and I was like, of course I bought, Time Splitters 2 for the 10th millionth time. Yeah. And I bought it on the GameCube, which is, preferred. GameCube's the preferred console. For some reason, Time Splitters games are one, pretty hard to find, and two, especially hard to find on the GameCube. And Time Splitters 2 is the first, Time Splitters game I played, and I played it on the GameCube. I still have my GameCube copy, but it broke, so it doesn't work.
Right.
And I used to get real into the level editor, and of course, since I played a lot of it on the GameCube, I have most of my save stuff. And so now that I got the GameCube version back, I can go back and not go through all the stuff again to play certain multiplayer levels and be certain characters. And then I could also, look at some of the old maps I made. I'm sure most of them are ass, but now I can, go read back and visit them. And I might do a video or two where I want to do more Time Splitters 2 videos in general of the challenge mode and the multiplayer, but I think I might now do some multiplayer, videos highlighting some of the levels I made now that I have the GameCube version again.
Something I did notice that you didn't do was you didn't mention that the case was different.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, so I guess you can show a picture of the cases side by side if you wanted.
Yeah, I could. But, so basically, where's Time Splitters at? So basically, you have a picture of Sergeant Cortez, the main character, and how would you describe that, stuff behind him?
I don't know.
It's kind of like a motion blur kind of thing. And the regular version, it's kind of like a white, lines and stuff. More white bluish. And then for some reason, this one is kind of like a purplish red kind of thing going on, and it looks really different. And every other copy of Time Splitters 2 that I have, because I have 10 million copies, as I said, all look like the first one I explained. This one's the only one that looked different. So, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just something weird. Something we don't really know anything about. We just observed that it's strange.
And I also mentioned in the video I got Mario Party 4 and 5, which I said were kind of collection completions, because, well, as far as the GameCube Mario parties are concerned, because I had 7 and 6, and now I got 4 and 5, so I got all the GameCube ones now. And I talked a little bit about in the video that 4 feels more like a N64 one, and I haven't played 5 yet, but I think 5 is where it got more the feeling of a GameCube Mario Party, because there's a difference between the GameCube Mario parties and the N64. The N64, for the most part, every map was you go and collect a star, and the maps were pretty flat and basic, just looking like boards. And and 4 is the only one that I know of where you can play as Donkey Kong, because I think from 5 on, correct me if I'm wrong here, Donkey Kong becomes a space on the board, and he has his own separate mini games.
I don't know if it's for all of those, but he definitely does in, I know for 8, I'm pretty sure in 7.
I know for a fact in 7 and 6 he has a space and his own mini games.
Then I'm assuming in 5 is the case as well.
But yeah, you know, like now I just have them all. I know you really like 5.
5 is really good.
Is there any specific reason?
Yes. So 5 has the bonus star. They're basically, so the menu for 5 is a bunch of stars, like the Elder Stars. And one of the stars is they're just like options that you can go into, and one of them is the option star, one of them is the minigame star, one of them is the party star. One of them is called, I don't know what it's called, but basically it brings you to a side game. It's not a mini game. It's a side game where you pick a character and then you get a vehicle and you get money. You earn money from doing fights, and you buy parts for your vehicle, and you buy weapons and stuff, and then you go and you fight other characters' built-up vehicles. So like you customize your own vehicle and then fight other custom vehicles. And it's just really neat, and it's really, I won't say it's fantastic or anything, because it's kind of simple, but it's way more involved than you'd expect out of just some side star in a Mario Party game, you know? And a lot of people remember just that minigame and not the fact that it was part of Mario Party, and I just think it's neat that it stands out, and I think it's really cool. It's just a really interesting mini game, and I don't know why they included it, but it must have been like a Nintendo idea that didn't come to fruition, so they added it in.
So next I want to talk a little bit about Crazy Frog, and I have a little bit of a funny story about this, because the last recent game I picked this game up and tried to play it on my PS2, said it couldn't read the disc, thought it was Crazy Frog's fault, realized after I returned it to the game store that it was my PS2's fault. And so basically, like, on the PS2 there are 2 different types of discs. There are the DVD disc, which are, you know, look like a standard disc,
right,
and then there are the compact discs, which are the blue ones. And compact discs are the same, you know, type of disc that they put the PS1 games on. And so basically I did some research. First of all, I found out that Drew bought Super Bust a Move in that, and which is also a blue disc. Is, you know, Crazy Frog and that are blue disc. I don't think I mentioned that Crazy Frog's a blue disc. Anyway, so Drew had that, and we were trying to record gameplay on my PS2, and that game wouldn't work either. And I had my own copy, so I put my own copy in to see if it was just Drew's copy, and it wouldn't read my copy either.
Nope.
And then I somehow got the idea, because I was like, I think Drew was like, oh, maybe it's your PS2, and then I was like, it can't be, because I know I played Ratchet and Clank on it, which is a DVD disc, so somehow I came to the conclusion, I put like I tried a bunch of different DVD discs and they work, and then I put compact discs and they didn't work. And through a little research I found out that the way the PS2 works is that the compact discs are like heavier. So like...
was it throwing off the like balance? Like,
so basically what the PS2 does is when it realizes that it's a DVD, it spins the disc, slower.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And when it realizes it's a compact disc, it spins it like slower because it's more weighted on the thing. So basically what I had to do was I had to like open up my PS2 and like kind of like dust off around the part that spins. And then, the compact discs work, and then I think I might have, because me returning that and saying it didn't work, I feel like that game store might have thrown that copy away. But then I found this one at a different game store.
That one's nicer than your
and
old one.
It works, just fine. So basically Crazy Frog is like a Mario Kart ripoff with Crazy Frog. I'm sure you guys have seen from like the XLF parody Crazy Frog video. And it's not like, I wouldn't play this game ever instead of Mario Kart. It's not a very good like rip off of Mario Kart, but it's definitely interesting to play for like a meme. And so basically like it's weird because like there's only really one character in the Crazy Frog universe that's
That
like a
anyone's heard
character,
of, yeah.
and that's Crazy Frog, which I believe his name in the game is
the annoying
something
thing.
annoying thing. And then there's the robots that chase him that you can play as, and like a robot general. And then there's like a couple weird spin-off characters. Like there's an Uncle Crazy Frog guy. There's
Thing.
yeah, the Holiday thing is what his name is. There's a girlfriend for the Crazy Frog. There's a Grim Reaper on a hoverboard skateboard looking thing. There's a random ass chef. And then there's another. I know there's the Grim Reaper guy, but I think there's another character with a hood on. But basically, there's a bunch of weird ass characters in this game, and it's interesting because the game basically it's like Mario Kart, so you're throwing shit at each other throughout the race, and you have this like little bar, and this bar is like a health bar slash speed. So like if you get attacked, you slow down, and then you got to pick more like a certain item up to fill the bar back up to like speed up again. So basically you don't ever really die, but if you get hit, it slows you down.
Yeah.
And then in this, I didn't play it, but there's like a rhythm DDR kind of game.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
And then there's a chase mode, which I think is very flawed. I don't know if I played it around you.
You showed me it, yeah.
And basically, the idea is that it's like the music video where you're getting chased by like the cops, but I noticed they get in front of you a lot, and they don't really make an attempt to like attack
to, like, backtrack, yeah.
And then something else about this game is like every level has like music in it, like a little parody song. Right. And of course, there's the level from the music video with the song.
The Crazy Frog song.
But then there's a couple interesting, there's cups, since it's like a Mario Kart clone. And the first cup is really shitty. I think Demi described it pretty well. And basically she said that it looks like for the design of this level, they took something out of like a little kid's closet and made a level of it. Because basically you're on this green track and there's a bunch of like soccer balls and like basketballs just floating in the background. And I remember specifically from this cup, I think it was like there's like 3 levels in the cup. In the middle level, like the second one, there was a parody of I'm Too Sexy.
Yep.
And it has to be the worst parody I think I've ever heard.
It's weird that it's sung by a girl. That doesn't help. But yeah, something else with that game, I would describe the gameplay as kind of like the worst parts of Mario Kart mixed with the worst parts of F-Zero.
Oh yeah, no, it's very nauseating. You go super fast.
It's the worst parts of Mario Kart and the worst parts of F-Zero with like a side of nausea. It's really hard to tell what's going on. The camera shakes a lot. Your character moves too fast. That kind of stuff.
So I've been thinking about talking about it for a while, been eyeballing it since it's sitting right there.
Yeah.
Red Dead Revolver. So like Red Dead Revolver's, the game that came out before Red Dead Redemption.
Right.
And it feels very much exactly like Red Dead Redemption, just on the PS2. And it's the PS2 game, so it's not like a free. It's level based. Yeah. But it was.
Bounty based, as you go into each level with a bounty, and then you kill that guy, and you get paid for it, and you get like achievement.
Yeah, and it still feels very like I didn't play it. Drew was the one playing, and I was watching it. But it to me, watching it, it felt still like Red Dead Redemption, just like a PS2 version.
The gunplay is similar. Yeah, I would give it that. I do know that Red Dead Revolver does not conform to the kind of semi-realistic approach. Like, how Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption are to some extent simulators, like late cowboy era simulator and modern day California simulator. But Red Dead Revolver has a bunch of really crazy, wacky characters, and there's supernatural stuff going on that you wouldn't really see in the main game of the Red Dead Redemption series. So it's a little bit different. Definitely the tone changed from the first game to the second game, but I think I kind of prefer the style of the first game. Just because it's goofier, arcadier, and it's more combat focused. I'm very much a combat focused action game player. I'm not big onto like exploring and checking out vistas and stuff. So it seems more up my alley than actual Red Dead Redemption.
Do you remember when we were playing, and I'll put the gameplay from this specific part up, where you were, I think it was 3 like bandits.
Yes. The first real boss.
You were after like 3 guys, and so you killed one pretty early on, and then one of them hid, but then one of them was just jumping over this like
he kept jumping back and forth over the fence.
Yeah, and it was really funny to look at, and like I think at one point you just stopped to look at him. I mean, we haven't talked about every game, but I don't really think we need to. I mean, I don't know if there's anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, but to wrap my stuff up, the last one I want to talk about is Alan Wake, which is I mentioned this is like one of the games I've been playing, a lot. This in Resident Evil, and this is the psychological action thriller, heavily based on like Stephen King's works,
right.
And it follows the story of a writer who's looking for his wife who got taken, and like it's really fun. So basically, like, you're kind of fighting like shadow people, and it's like cool because like so what you have to do is you like flash them with your flashlight until like they kind of like explode a little bit, and then you can shoot them with your gun. And it's really fun. Like, a lot of the gameplay is you're like running through the woods to like get to a certain objective, and like it's the way the game's set up is like it's a lot of like it's set up like he's writing a book but while you're playing it. So like you'll be doing stuff, and then like he won't be saying stuff out loud, but he'll be narrating it like your character. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. And what was I gonna say? Like, this game's like really cool. Like, there's a lot of stuff to like stop and see.
Yeah,
like
a lot of exploration.
Yeah, I'm sure and like most people know, because it's like the first thing most people talk about when the exploration stuff. But like early on in the game, you can go in this little cabin, and so basically you go in this cabin, there's a TV, and you turn it on, and there's like a parody show of the Twilight Zone. And it's like really cool to watch. Like, it's not like a whole length TV show, it's super short, but basically the summary of the show that they show, I think it's called like, I want to say Spooky Door, but I think that's Futurama.
That sounds more Futurama.
I don't know. It's something like,
it's something semi-serious.
Yeah, but basically it's a parody of the Twilight Zone. The episode that they show, basically it's a college room, and this professor is teaching a lesson, and he pulls out like a loaded gun, like a revolver, and he's basically saying like a multi-universe theory, and he's like, so he takes the gun and he puts it to his head, and he's like, if I pull the trigger, this gun will not shoot. Alright, so then he proceeds to pull the trigger, nothing happens, and then and he says, I will continue pulling this trigger, and nothing happens. And he says something about like every time he pulls the trigger, it splits into 2 realities, one where he killed himself, one where he didn't. And then somewhere along the lines, it's like it ends up like kind of like a mystery speculation at the end, because like one of the students like knocks a plug over and it unplugs something right before he goes to pull the trigger again. He pulls the trigger and then the gun goes off. So it doesn't say what that plug does, but it's left to speculate that it had something to do with him not dying maybe the first time. But something I thought was interesting when I was playing, like early on in the game, you go into a diner, and it was really weird because like when you go into dark areas, that's when like things get weird.
The monsters.
Yeah, and you go into like this diner to find like to talk to someone, and You go in there and like they say, oh, he's in the bathroom, but you can wait for him. But then you're like, no, I gotta be fucking persistent. So you go into like the hallway, and for some reason the lights are shut off in the hallway, and there's this weird woman like looking in the hallway, and she's like, oh, you shouldn't go in there, it's too dark, you'll get hurt. And then you go in there and like you go to knock on the door, like, so basically you walk in this hallway, and to go to the bathrooms you have to take like a left. So you go take like a left, go knock on the bathroom door, and then like this weird like ominous lady taps on your shoulder. And so basically, okay, so the guy you were going to go talk to is going to give you the keys to this cottage you were staying in.
Right.
And you were going to go get the keys from him. But this lady that taps you on the shoulder, who's clearly not the person, because the person that was in the question that he was looking for was a guy. And this weird lady comes up and gives him the keys and says something like, oh, I'll be seeing you soon. Like really ominously, and it's like creepy. And I think she has like a big role in the game because she showed up like a couple other times, and I'm very interested to see how this game ends because, as I said, like I rented this game like a really long time ago, enjoyed it, but for some reason never bought it.
Just never got around to it.
Yeah.
It's also a really short game too. I think it's like a 6-hour game.
Well, shit. I haven't had like a whole lot of time to like play it, but I think I'm like 3 or 4 hours in.
Yeah, so you're getting there.
So, anything you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up?
Yeah, there's a couple I can knock out real quick.
I mean, you don't have to be quick. It's fine.
Yeah. But, some of them, I just wanted to say a few things that I didn't get to really elaborate on. Die Hard Trilogy, it's like Alien Trilogy, where there are 3 games in one, but they're all kind of smaller games, and in Die Hard Trilogy, they're all light gun shooters. Which I know I mentioned it was light gun shooters, but they're basically light gun shooters that detail the events of the first 3 Die Hard. And that's a PS1
which we probably won't have gameplay for this, because can't really record not on an HD TV, and HD TVs and light guns have issues. So I apologize for that if you've been on YouTube, watching all these gameplays.
Something else I wanted to say, for Metal Gear Solid, the reason, because I mentioned it being a controversial one, the reason it's so controversial is because you play as Raiden for the entire game. You don't play as Snake. At the very beginning, you play as Snake, but after you complete like the tutorial type deal, it's a long first chapter called The Tinker. And once you complete that, you never play as Snake again. Snake is a main character in the game, and he still appears a lot, but you play as another agent whose codename is Snake, but it's Raiden. And I do think it's very, very good, and I think it does some really, really cool stuff that I haven't really seen again since, and I really enjoy, too. It might be my favorite in the franchise. But every time I say that, I'm like, well, I really liked 1, and 3 was really good, and 4 is super cool, and 5 has all that unique combat, so it's like, they're all my favorite, I guess.
I know how you feel. Like, there's a lot of series where I'm like, well, I don't know if I could pick a favorite.
Exactly, because they're all
like,
good
for me, off
reasons.
the top of my head, I'm thinking, like, Gears of War. Like, not really so much Pikmin. I could clearly tell Pikmin 2 is probably the pinnacle. Maybe Worms, too. Like, Worms are all good in their own respect.
And then I wanted to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho, just in a little more detail.
Oh, yeah, so just to set a couple things up. So basically, I had a copy of Yu Yu Hakusho on the Game Boy Advance.
I believe it was called Yu Yu Hakusho something like Practice Arena or Training Arena or something like that.
Yeah, so like Yu Yu Hakusho is like a anime show, which I wasn't really into as a kid. I don't know how I came.
Mid-90s, kind of like it was 90s, and it's really cool. I like Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, like I've never watched an episode in the anime, so I don't know why I had the Game Boy Advance game, but I have a vivid memory of being in the car and like playing that game and having a really good time not knowing anything about Yu Yu Hakusho. So basically the copy I had was a turn-based strategy. You had like a team of like 4-ish people, and like you walked around the grid, and like you had like different attacks, mostly like close range, but some characters had like far away range, a couple blocks away. And I believe it was like if a character died, they were dead.
Yeah.
So like it was real dramatic if a character you liked died because.
Right.
So I don't know any of the characters' names, but I know you start off with like a guy with like brown hair, then you get like this girl with like red hair, and she was pretty good. I think she might have been a healer. And then there was a guy with a white hair, like spiky hair, and then a guy with like orange, red, spiky hair. And I remember both those guys I liked a lot because they were really good, but I think the guy with the white hair died at some point, and I was super upset about it. So basically, when Drew bought that game, he was hoping that it'd
be along those lines.
Yeah.
Because the one Michael played, I've never seen it. I mean, I've seen the copy, but I've never seen gameplay. I've never watched him play it. I've never played it personally.
I've talked about it enough for him to know what it's about.
It sounds like it's a TRPG. And it sounds like it's specifically kind of a Fire Emblem clone, like trying to capitalize on Fire Emblem. Because it came out around the same era that Fire Emblem made its debut in America. Not that I imagine Yu Yu Hakusho was a game exclusive to America, but it was kind of the peak of the Fire Emblem's franchise, kind of the peak of their popularity, I mean, before Awakening came out. But it has the same permadeath stuff, it has the gameplay of Fire Emblem where it's like grid-based, and then, so the TRPG gameplay. So I was expecting that. Or just something along the lines of, because that sounded super side series-y, you know, because I think it's literally called, like, Yu Yu Hakusho Practice Arena, or something like that. And this one is called Spirit Detective, which is, I believe, the subtitle of the show, and the manga, rather. But no, this one is isometric. It's like an isometric one-button brawler, and you just kind of mash A. And it has like an experience system, but it's just you kill enemies and get experience, and it's really hard to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, and it's not I did not get very good first impressions of it, if that was unclear. But it was kind of a gamble, and I lost, but I'm okay with that. It's neat. I think it's interesting that it is so starkly different to something that works so well, you know. Yeah, I guess the only other one I did want to talk about Star Fox Zero and just why it's disappointing. Because I really like Star Fox, and I really like Platinum Games. So when I heard that that Platinum Games was making a Star Fox game, I was understandably very excited. But they just kind of really forced the motion controls, and it kind of broke the pace.
Yeah, because didn't you have to look down at the gamepad for most of the gameplay?
All of the, like,
and I was watching the TV, and it was like a different...
Yeah.
It was like two different things going on.
Yeah, you have to look at both at the same time, and it just doesn't work super well. But, you know, they tried. And it has good stuff going for it, but it's too weird. So that's that.
Just probably want to move on to Wild Guns. I think that's what you just dropped right there.
It is what I just dropped, yeah. So Wild Guns, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about it because I didn't get a chance to really
dive deep,
explain on what it is. All I really said was that it's arcadey, which it is. It's a mid-90s game.
It's a Genesis NES game.
Yeah, it is a Genesis SNES game. I think it's actually just SNES.
When I say Genesis NES, I usually just mean SNES.
Yeah, but well, it was originally an arcade game, I believe. I don't know what company it's by, but
it definitely feels like a different experience from most NES games.
If I had to have guessed, I would have said SNK, but I know it's not. It's some other company that is known for Wild Guns. But it was only ever released... It might have been on the Genesis... I really can't recall right now. I should have researched that. But it was only ever released in arcades, and then on that era of home consoles, so it was Gen 5. Only ever released on Gen 5 consoles, and it was never re-released until Gen 8. That's what we're on now, right? Gen 8?
Something like that.
PS2 was 6, and then 7 was, yeah. Then it was released on Gen 8, and it just kind of was a no-brainer. when the price dropped, it was a no-brainer. If I was gonna get it, I was gonna get it on the Switch, and it's very fun. It's again, I do believe this is a pretty loaded statement saying that it's the best arcade experience on the Switch, considering there's so many arcade games on the Switch now. But I would say it plays somewhere between like it plays kind of like a spaceship shooter in that like you're dodging enemy projectiles and stuff, but it also plays like a light gun game. But the control scheme isn't really the same of either of those. So it's really there's no way to get the Wild Guns experience without playing Wild Guns. It's its own demon, and it's really neat. I think it's very good. I enjoy it a lot. A lot of replayability, and it's hard, and it's fun. It's everything I wanted.
I had fun playing it when we did the gameplay for it.
And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, all I wanted to talk about was Conquer Live and Reloaded, because it's weird.
Oh, I love Conquer.
I love Conquer too.
Well, if you're talking about Live and Reloaded, something I thought was weird about that game. So basically, that's like the Xbox version,
right? Xbox original,
and it's like a remaster, kind of like bringing it to the Xbox. And they were very weird. Like the dialogue of the game was very open about it being slightly different from the original.
Right.
So like I think there was something with the gargoyle being so basically I think it was like the gargoyle in the original, you smack him with the frying pan and he fucks off, right?
And he dies, yeah.
And then in this one, you go to hit him with the thing, and then he doesn't move. And then like there's a thought bubble for Conquer, and he's like, "Huh, I thought in the original game he moved." And then like there's a whole conversation about it.
Yeah, and then like that's how they introduced the new combat mechanics, where Conquer.
Yeah, and there was like in the room where you go chase the key, there was additional enemies.
Yeah.
And then it also addresses, hey, these weren't here. Like I remember
it keeps pointing out the differences.
Like you said that, like you're like, hey, I don't remember this guy being here.
Yeah, and then Conquer said it right after me. But yeah, like Conquer Live and Reloaded features. Like I don't know that I want to say like a full kind of combat system. It's an over-the-shoulder, more modern. I say more modern. It's not super modern. It's kind of that, Xbox era. Just weird combat. If you ever saw us talking about Whacked, it's not super dissimilar from Whacked. But yeah, there was a lot of gunplay and stuff, and one of the big things with Conquer Live and Reloaded, I believe specifically the reason that it's called Live and Reloaded, Reloaded denoting that there are guns, and Live being that it has Xbox Live, there was a big push for Conquer Live and Reloaded to have Xbox Live functionality, and they wanted there to be a big PvP scene for Live and Reloaded, which is a very weird push to make for Conquer, but this was around the time where Rare was acquired by Microsoft, and they were just kind of trying to capitalize on what Microsoft had. They're trying to capitalize on Rare's IPs while also kind of flexing their Microsoft muscles, and the big Microsoft muscle at the time was Xbox Live, and the big Rare IP at the time was Conquer, because it came out in 2000, right at the end of the N64's lifetime, and Microsoft was like, okay, make it happen, and it's just kind of like a really weird mashup, and it's honestly strange that it exists, but it does. But it's also a full remaster of the original game, in addition to all these new things. So, from that perspective, it's kind of neat. My one big gripe with it is that it doesn't have the smoothest of frame rates, which neither did the original, but it's kind of understandable on that one. Because the original game looks really, really nice for its console. It's one of the best looking games on the N64.
And I will say the Xbox version looks really nice. Like, there was very high attention to like the hair detail on Conquer, which I thought was weird to see in an Xbox game.
The environments looked a little bit weird, I'll be honest. They're just slightly strange. But, yeah. A lot of the voice acting was extremely similar. Oh, it's worth mentioning, too, with Live and Reloaded, there were a couple of things that were controversial with it, not even including...
Oh, the censoring.
The censorship, yep.
We didn't get to the great mighty Pooh in the gameplay, but I do know a lot of people were very upset with his whole, like, singing part being censored.
I think they censor the word shit and tish, and yeah, and it's kind of disappointing, because I think when people heard that there was... Xbox was always geared towards adults, more so than Nintendo was.
Now that I think about it, it's really backwards. Like, Nintendo wasn't censored, but Xbox was.
Because everyone was expecting Conquer Live and Reloaded to be, like, the complete uncensored Conquer experience. But there was more... Because Conquer was originally censored. They censored all the F words out. And the N64 version. So what everyone expected for the Xbox version was that they would take all of the censorship out and just have regular dialogue. But lo and behold, it ended up being significantly more censored as a result. I say as a result, but I don't know why it's more censored. No reason.
Something I noticed, and it's a small thing, and maybe it's not changed. I just feel like it was. But when we went to the farm area, one of my favorite parts of the game, like small little features, is when you go to pick up the cheese to feed it to the rat, and the cheese is like alive, and when you pick it up to carry it over, it's screaming the whole time, asking you to put it down. And I feel like it wasn't screaming enough when you were holding it compared to the original version, because I remember in the original it felt like when you were like walking back over the rat the whole time, like every not even 5 seconds, like every like 1 second, the whole cheese the cheese is just screaming, whoa, 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 put me down, whoa, 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 let me go, whoa, put me down. And then your favorite part, which is going in the barn with the stick, the pitchfork, and like the paint can.
Go over there and kick his ass. Kick his ass for me.
I'm
not going to kick his ass.
I mean, that part seemed exactly the same to me.
Yeah,
a
lot
really
of the
fun.
dialogue is unchanged. What was I gonna say? One of my new favorite parts, though, just because I forgot about it, was the you go up to a crate and there's a bigger crate sitting on top of him. It's actually the same part Michael likes.
It's basically to resolve the situation that Drew will explain here in a minute. You have to bring the cheese over to the rat to get the rat to fuck off.
Right. So it's there's the two crates, and it's a small metal crate and a big metal crate, and one of them has a bow and one of them has, like, I don't know, like thick eyebrows or something.
Yeah, the smaller one,
it's clearly male, and the one on top is clearly female. And you go up and there's a rat in the area, and the female crate, you infer that the female crate is afraid of the rat, and so she's sitting on top of the male crate.
And the male crate is the smaller of the two, so he's getting crushed.
First words that the male crate says to you when you talk to him is, "Hey, get this fat ass bitch off of me." it's hilarious. I love. And
then you feed the rat cheese until he literally explodes.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. Not that the first game wasn't, but it felt like Live and Reloaded was semi-significantly more gory than the original.
I think we should also mention dying, because the whole death area is different.
Yeah, because it's just like a black void in the original one.
Yeah, and there's Greg, the Grim Reaper.
My name's Greg.
And I believe it's just like a black room in the original. You just pick up a tail and then you respawn. But in this one, it's like a whole like hell landscape.
Yeah, it's got like a cemetery and there's like fire and stuff, and it's different. Yeah. There's just changes, and we don't know exactly to the extent of the changes that are made to Live and Reloaded, but there are definitely changes. Some good, some bad, I'm sure.
Anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that about covers it. I have some other games here, but I don't really have much interesting stuff to say about them, so it's...
I'll take a scan at my game, see if there's anything else I want to mention. I mean, not really. I I mean, I could talk, another hour about that So Raven on the Game Boy Advance.
I'm sure.
No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, guys, I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right, catch you later.